Hi there, online students or anybody working from home. Today we're going to talk about the Industrial Revolution. So the word industrial refers to industry. Revolution just means change. So we're looking at a time period that lasted about 70 years, from 1790 to 1860. Now, the Industrial Revolution, again, is a sudden change of making goods by hand to then now making them with machines. And this started in England in the late 1700s. The machines they had in the late 1700s are not really what you would think of as machines today. Prior to making machines making goods by using machines, we started making them by hand, and this was known as the cottage industry. So basically, products would be made in the home in a cottage by hand. Very, very slow process. Very skilled laborers doing it, but very slow process. Machines were huge, like very, very big, and they needed these big factories or warehouses to keep them in. And so a couple of examples here. This is called the spinning jenny. Anytime you see the word jenny, it's a nickname for the word engine. So yes, this was an engine, even though it was cranked by hand, no electrical power, no gasoline power. This is called the spinning jenny, and then this was called the water frame. And both of these were used in the production of thread and cloth, which is known as the textile industry. So anytime you're talking about making clothes, that's the textile industry. So spinning jenny and water frame, and these were the inventors, these two guys right here. Most factories needed a water wheel to power the machines, and so this water wheel, this axle would go into the building here, and it would be connected to that water frame or potentially the spinning jenny. So now that we're making products with machines going much, much faster, we can make the textiles or clothing much quicker. And this is going to actually push, some of those skilled artisans out of jobs. People are also going to be leaving their farms. They're going to move to the city to work in factories. And cities are going to triple in size over the next 50 years. So let's look at industrialization in the North. So we're talking about the Northeast states, specifically like Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, places like that. So there were 5 reasons why the Industrial Revolution really took off in the North. Number 1, they needed swift-running rivers to power the water wheels, and the Northeast had a ton of rivers. A lot of it just has to do with geography and landscape. Number 2, the soil in the North was really bad. It was rocky. You had a cool climate, which meant that farming was not very successful. So if you're not successful at farming, you're going to try something different, and that means going to work in a factory. Number 3, the Northeast or New England states were already the center of shipping and trade. Lots of great seaports and harbors up there, so it was already the center of trade, so it makes sense to build your factories up there. They had a large labor source. The population in the North was a lot larger than it was in the South, and a lot of that had to do with the high immigration rate. And then there were large iron ore deposits underground that could be mined, and ultimately that iron ore would then be used to make steel buildings. Early factories were made out of wood. Those caught fire pretty easily, and so eventually they looked to make the factories out of metal. Some of the famous people, Samuel Slater, probably a guy you've never heard of, but Samuel Slater is considered the father of American industry. He built the first successful factory in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and it was a textile factory. His system used adults and small children. He would hire entire families. The adults would get paid $2 to $3 a week, and the kids would get paid 50 cents a week. And when I say kids, I mean as young as like 5 or 6 years old, working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. There were no child labor laws. There were no labor laws in general for anybody. In 1814, a guy named Francis Cabot Lowell improves Slater's factory system. He basically puts all the steps of taking raw cotton and turning it into a cloth shirt under one roof. Rather than having multiple factories for the different steps in the process, he put together a multi-leveled building. This was called the Lowell system, and within the Lowell system, he used young unmarried women as his factory workers. They would get paid about $3 a week, and we're talking about girls ages 15 to 20, 15 to 25, but again, as young as 10 years old. And if you were a young adult lady and you were not married, then you were working and you were saving up money to eventually present to whoever your future husband would be. It's called a dowry. Again, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. And they would actually live on campus, basically. It's almost like a dormitory, if you will. It was called a boarding house. So they would not live at home and then travel to work each day. They would actually live kind of on campus. There would be kind of a lady who lived with them that kind of oversaw their daily activities. I got slightly interrupted there for a second. I don't know if you could hear that announcement come on, but I paused, and so I'm back now. But anyway, Eli Whitney. Eli Whitney invented interchangeable parts in 1797. These are parts that are made exactly the same, so every part can be interchanged, and you don't have to throw the product away just because one part of it breaks. The U.S. government actually contracted him to make 10,000 muskets or rifles. And guns and clocks were the first factory products to use interchangeable parts. And really only super wealthy people could afford clocks. I know that seems weird to talk about clocks, but clocks were like for the wealthy elite because they were so expensive to make. And then because the government contracted him to make 10,000 muskets, he needed to figure out a way to make them quickly and make them all uniformly. Some of the hazards working in factory life: dirty, lint-filled air, flying belts and machine parts, wooden factories catching on fire, I mentioned that earlier, long hours and low wages, I mentioned, fingers and hair getting caught in the machinery, and then the loud deafening noise actually causing hearing loss to people. Northern cities started to change. Disease started spreading quickly. We have dirty, muddy roads, no sewers, garbage in the streets. Fires were spreading quickly from the wooden buildings. Crime rate went up. There really was no such thing as a police force. I apologize for that bell once again. Having all kinds of interruptions. Wasn't planning on those. Increased crime rate, no police force. Entertainment, such as gambling, horse racing, museums, plays, circuses. And then we have what's called the mega cities start to develop, where the urban population is going to triple in the next 50 years. And I'm going to stop right there for today. And then we will move on and talk a little bit about industrialization in the South and transportation and communication revolution in our next screencast, next class period. Have a great day.